Hi, this is Brian Kim. I'm going to share with you this case of me implanting the new Tecnis PureSee IOL from Johnson & Johnson. And this is the next generation extended depth of focus IOL for improved glasses-free vision. I was fortunate to have early access to this lens, and this case was performed on April 1st, 2026. And this lens is touted to be excellent because it is forgiving in a variety of situations, and in particular patients with mild coexisting pathology. And so this is from Johnson & Johnson's website, and it says this is a new, purely refractive extended depth of focus IOL with monofocal-like dysphotopsia, meaning lenses that give you extended range of vision have rings and basically lens technology that causes aberrations and distortion. And the Tecnis PureSee IOL is supposed to have monofocal-like dysphotopsia, which means less dysphotopsias and visual distortions. And again, on their website, key features: monofocal-like visual disturbances, in other words, less visual distortions like night driving and glare and halos. Excellent contrast, meaning when you have colors that are very similar, that they'll be more distinguishable. Excellent range of vision and tolerances to refractive error. And again, according to the website, 90% of patients occasionally or never have to wear glasses. And this is referring to the near vision. It's a little bit weaker. And so patients will have to wear a weak pair of reading glasses. 97% of patients would recommend the lens to their friends and families. And 97% of patients report they're not bothered by visual disturbances. And so my personal real-world experience and talking to other surgeons who have a lot of experience with these lenses, that patients have excellent distance vision without glasses, excellent computer vision without glasses, and good near vision reading vision without glasses, but having to wear reading glasses for fine print. And then overall, the visual quality is good. Good contrast sensitivity, minimal visual distortions, especially driving at night and seeing halos and rings. In other words, this lens tries to mimic the most natural vision, and this is the reason why I believe this lens is going to be very successful. So that's the corneal marker that I use as my standard technique to help me center and size the rhexis, using the cotton tip to steady the eye. This is the paracentesis incision, first on the right and then the left side, making sure I'm parallel to iris plane, which creates a nice corneal shelf, which will allow me to achieve a self-sealing incision. This is intracameral epinephrine, and this is some dispersive viscoelastic, the endocote. I use that same cannula to control the eye, so I make my triplanar corneal incision. I make a vertical groove, place the blade into the deep part of the groove, tunnel, and then I enter. That's a triplanar incision, and that's my 2.4 millimeter blade. Using that same cannula to control the eye and steady it, this is the Morio microrhexis forceps. I puncture the center, pull down towards me, and then grabbing the edge of the flap every 2 to 3 clock hours, going around circumferentially, making sure that the flap matches and stays within the diameter of the corneal mark that I made. I'm using that cannula to control the eye the entire time, grabbing and re-grabbing, staying nice and flat. And again, these microrhexis forceps are excellent because I have minimal fluid egress and excellent control of the rhexis. This is the capsule fornix hydrodissection technique. I place a cannula under the rhexis edge contra-incisionally, get a nice wave, lift the lens up, decompressing the bag, and then pushing the lens back into the bag, and the lens begins to spin. Irrigating the surface of the eye, lifting the incision with the chopper, going in with irrigation off to minimize Descemet's trauma. Removing the surface epinuclear material, sliding the chopper under the rhexis edge contra-incisionally, the phaco tip vertically sub-incisionally, bringing the instruments together, fracturing the lens in half, that's double chop, sliding the chopper under the rhexis edge around the right heminucleus, hooking it and pulling it centrally toward the phaco tip, and then fracturing it against the phaco tip, and that's the cross chop. Quickly evacuating that first quadrant with some high vacuum, turning the lens, performing another cross chop, dividing the second quadrant into multiple pieces using manual fracturing forces, and then emulsifying the lens pieces, using some vacuum to grab a little bit more of that fragment, lifting it up, mashing it with the chopper, and then emulsifying it. Doing the same thing with the remaining piece of that second quadrant. turning the second heminucleus in front of me, sliding the chopper around the rexus edge, pulling it centrally toward the phaco tip, fracturing the lens against the phaco tip, using some vacuum to lift that third quadrant up, and then just crushing the lens between the instruments, and then using the high vacuum to suck out the pieces. Getting the chopper around the last quadrant, hooking the lens, crushing it in half, and then using vacuum to grab the fragments, mashing it against the phaco tip, and emulsifying it. I know the overlay is not on. Unfortunately, it was turned off on this case, but essentially this is a zero ultrasonic energy case. So all the endonucleus has been removed. I grab the epinucleus, lift it up, and that's the lens removal. So I take the chopper out, push BSS in, take the phaco tip out, and I go in with the INE handpiece. I always start subincisionally, peeling the cortex from anterior to posterior. You can see I have excellent chamber stability. The posterior capsule is pushed back nicely. I'm able to grab the anterior capsule, pulling it and peeling it like peeling a banana. It's nice and clean when you do it this way. Going around, this is the last bit on the left side. Grasping the anterior portion of the cortex. Pulling manually, I like to pull towards the center rather than using the high vacuum. There's a little bit more risk when you're using that high vacuum. Better to manually peel it with your hand. Switching to polish mode, polishing underneath the anterior capsule rim. I was able to also carefully remove that remaining subincisional cortical material. Pulsing the subincisional bag with BSS, the capsule fornix, it was clean. Turning off infusion, filling the bag with cohesive viscoelastic, and then using the Singer Koch sweeper, sweeping under the rexus edge on the left side and then the right side. I like this paddle. It's got a better angle and it's much bigger than other types of sweeps. And here we go. This is the lens. I'll show it. It's a preloaded lens. You can see it's got that blue color. On the plunger, it's a twisty plunger. DENOOV is the name of the PureSee lens. It's very easy because it's preloaded. The lens has already been advanced. You can see right there. You want to follow the manufacturer's recommendation on how to prepare that lens. Using the cannula to control the eye, and then I push the lens in, and I twist and deliver the lens into the bag. You can see it's very smooth. It should go in smooth. If it's not, that something is wrong. I like to use a viscoelastic cannula to just disengage the haptics off the optic, tuck the trailing haptic into the bag, turning off infusion and then turning it on, getting underneath the lens, removing the viscoelastic from within the bag. And then I'll remove the viscoelastic from the anterior chamber and polish under the rexus edge. And then I'll hydrate my incisions, and that'll be the end of the case. Now, what's interesting about this lens, unlike other extended depth of focus lenses, it's really hard to see that central ring. Some other manufacturers, you can see this distinct ring. I had a hard time actually seeing that on the eye, and it really looks like a monofocal lens. And so the fact that Johnson & Johnson is claiming that this lens behaves like a monofocal lens kind of makes sense, because I don't see any rings, and those are the rings that can introduce distortion and aberrations. And so I don't see any rings. It essentially looks like a ZC Boo lens. My general impression with this lens is that patients have excellent distance vision. So this patient in particular, after having both eyes done, she was seeing 20/20 in both eyes, uncorrected for distance vision, 20/20 at computer vision in both eyes, and was about 20/40 at near without correction. And that's essentially what we expect and tell the patients, that you're going to have excellent vision for driving and computer, but good vision for reading. You'll have the weak pair of reading glasses. And 20/40 up close with no glasses, that was essentially what I was 5 years ago without correction, because I'm plano. Putting a patient who's in their 70s and 80s and making them essentially ametropic, pre-presbyopic, around 40s and 50 years of age, to me, that's a win. And again, most importantly, hopefully simulating and mimicking the most natural quality of vision. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I thank you for your attention.